So this is me 2 weeks ago. I'm just your average small business director, trying to make a living out in the black. Cracking rocks, scraping holes, moving cargo. I like to roll up my sleeves and put in a hard day's graft. But day by day, week by week, month by month, it was getting harder and harder to keep the company in the black. The Lyria quant rush was over, they didn't make salvage heads like they used to, and slowly but surely, there was more and more red ink in the company ledger. But on an average run-of-the-mill salvage job, I found myself wondering as to whether there might be a bottle of Cruise Lux stashed away on board that I could quench my thirst and hunger with. And while I was poking around inside the derelict wreck, I came across a mysterious box. Now you've got to understand, usually I wouldn't have gone anywhere near this stuff. But as I said, times were tough. So with a quick check to make sure nobody was around to see, I stuffed that box in the back of my vulture and away I went to the local scrapyard. To my surprise, that one little box turned out to be worth more than my entire haul of RMC. And according to Mr. Brio on Damer, he'd buy as much as I could bring him. Apparently demand was so high in Stanton that the Nine Tails had been dishing out courier jobs to anyone, including a whole bunch of folks who hadn't even got their pilot's license yet. So there were no end of wrecks to scavenge through for the goods. Still, I knew that if I was going to do this, it was going to have to be a case of go big or go home. Sure, I could fill a C2 and keep the wolves from the door for another month or two, but something crept into me at this point. I started to want more. I wanted the money. I wanted the power. I wanted the plushies. So if you want to find out how we became the biggest cartel in Stanton, then grab a cup of tea while I roll the limited edition intro, then let's get into it. So like I said, it was time to think big. One massive shipment of goods, enough to set myself and the company up for life. Going piecemeal with a Herc wasn't gonna cut it. So I checked out one of the newly shipped Miss Cole C's from our logistics department, and without telling anyone what I was up to, I set course for Yella. And Mr. Brio sure wasn't lying. The wrecks were plentiful, and the cargo was stacked. But before long I realised, try as I might, I couldn't do this alone. I needed to find some help. To start with, I needed a crack pilot, capable of throwing around the biggest of ships. I needed a maverick loot goblin, ready to sort through all the goods. And I needed the best damn box stacker in the business. Together we set out to make our fortune, finding that the best strategy was to use our Hull C as a makeshift space station out in the deep black just outside of the Crusader system, away from the prying eyes of security. This way we could hurl any goods we found into our C2s, knowing that they would be neatly sorted the other end, using the 8 giant panels of the hull to separate out the commodities. But as anyone heading down the criminal path will know, the only way to truly keep a secret is to tell no one. As our operation grew, we needed more and more people to come on board. With crates hurling around at 100 meters per second, there were bound to be accidents, so we needed to find ourselves a morally dubious doctor. And with so many crates to move, and the risk of extra attention, it also helped to bring on some additional muscle. Slowly but surely the shipment grew. We mostly wreck dived out amongst the asteroid ring of Yella, but occasionally we'd get a tip-off about derelict convoys in deep space. Not only did they add to our already overflowing panels of Slam, Etam, Widow, Neon and Maze, but they brought new more esoteric contraband such as the forbidden gasping weevil eggs. Generally, we looked past the bulk metals the smarter of these incompetent pilots used to cover their real cargo. But historically, Frontier Consolidated has been an industrial powerhouse, so it's just not possible for us to ignore free Quantanium, so we grabbed that too. Over the week we probably dived 500 wrecks, but as the clock struck midnight on Saturday, the crew gathered to see the final box snap to the grid and let out an almighty cheer. And then a deflated sigh as 1 minute later we realised that we'd missed a spot. But then an almighty cheer again. And so, with our hull C stacked with 4,608 SCU of illegally obtained cargo, we gathered on the bridge to set course for Microtech. Because while Mr. Brio might have given us the inside scoop, we knew him for what he was, a loudmouth who talked to too many people in too many bars. The breaker yard on Damer was too hot. Too many rival cartels, too many pirates wanting to relieve them of their cargo. Meanwhile, Mrs. Devlin on Microtech's moon Euterpe, out of the far edge of the system, operated a far more professional operation. She was a true businesswoman who knew that loose lips sink ships. After running some tests, it became apparent that our hull C couldn't even handle the minor gravity of Euterpe. So we needed to decant our goods back onto Hercules for the final leg to the cell site. But since we had used the panels to sort our cargo, it made it far easier to get it off than it was to get it on. Each hull C panel holds 576 SCU, which perfectly utilises the two main grids of a C2 without having to use the fiddly 1 SCU wide blocks. And the spacing of the spindles makes it a breeze to load 4 C2s at a time. It's almost as if Misk and Crusader ships were designed by the same people. Now with everything prepared, it was time for the final leg. From the borders of the Microtech system to Euterpe and down to Devlin's scrapyard was just a hop, skip and a jump. But still, this was where it could all go terribly wrong. With all the cargo ready to move, it was at this point that I realised just how deep we'd got ourselves. It was a make or break moment where we could win it all or lose it all in an instant. So with a heavy heart, I decided it was time to come clean to my colleagues at Frontier. I told them the whole story, the desperation, the debts, the drugs, and they did not let me down. Mrs. Devlin's eyes were wide. She needed time to absorb the huge amount of cargo as we brought in C2 after C2 filled to the brim. On the ground and in the skies, we held the scrapyard for the 2 hours it took to move the entire shipment. 480 SCU of Ultrusia toxin, 2,760,000 credits. 640 SCU of neon, 5,760,000 credits. 432 SCU of slam, 7,290,000 credits. 64 SCU of gasping weave legs, 7,360,000 credits. 750 SCU of ETAM, 8,625,000 credits. And 768 SCU of Widow for 10,456,320 credits. As the sun went down over Devlin, a few local lads tried their luck, but they met a predictable end, and we successfully delivered every gram of our shipment without incident and left 42.5 million credits richer. But surely that wasn't it. What about the Quantanium and the maze? Well, as luck would have it, we already run a mining division. So while it raised a few eyebrows at the new Babbage TDD when we turned up with a 928 SCU Quantanium shipment, it was still within the realms of possibility, and we cashed that out for a tidy 23,200,000 credits. But the pièce de résistance was the maze. Some of our crew were on shore leave, taking a well-deserved break at one of New Babbage's nightclubs, when a member of the security force came to them with some information he thought might interest us. Apparently the bureaucrats on Microtech were keen to be seen to be doing something about the rampant criminal activity in their sector, and were offering a premium price of 160k per SCU of maize confiscated from the local lab at Raven's Roost. So we figured either they'd be too stupid, or just not care about where that maize actually came from. At the end of the day, they just wanted the headlines and the photo op. And sure enough, when we arrived with 2 C2s carrying a combined 546 SCU of maize, Port Tressler opened its doors to us, and we sold those government narcs that maize for 87,360,000 credits. They even wanted to give us medals. And with that, we walked away clean. We'd got it all. The money, the power, and maybe, most importantly of all, the plushies. Thank you so much for sticking around to watch something completely different. I love some of the things Star Citizen makes possible, and I've always wanted to get a bit more into machinima style content. But it was also really fun setting ourselves this challenge of filling a whole hull C with contraband. I know that in reality, loading it up at Crusader, only to take it to Microtech and unload it all, it's woefully inefficient, but it was really fun, even if sometimes it was incredibly frustrating. And I think some of the things we learnt about efficiently loading and unloading cargo were actually really valuable. I mean, for one, I have the greatest sympathy to any pirates trying to steal a whole sea's cargo. I would like to say a huge thank you to everyone who helped out with this video, especially to Ravnak, Sylar, Flint, Sniggy, Slimako, Rockham and Noisemaze for all the hours they put into the setup. Also to everyone from the org who chipped in at all and helped secure the selling location on Sunday. There were a lot of late nights involved with making it over the last week, so a massive thank you there. Contrary to the story here, we're mostly a law-abiding community and org, so we try to cover as many aspects of the game as we can. So if you'd like to hop into our Discord, there's a link in the video description down below. Also, if you're interested in trying out SE, you'll find my referral code down there as well for an extra few credits when you start. If any of your friends already play, just please use theirs. But with all that said, thank you very much for watching all the way to the end, and I look forward to seeing you next time.